This is a story of David and Goliath, a story of courage, faith, and victory. Chapter 1, The Shadow of War. In the days of King Saul, the land of Israel was in constant conflict with the Philistines, a powerful enemy nation that dwelled along the coastal plains. The Philistines had advanced in military strength, boasting iron weapons and fierce warriors. The threat they posed to Israel was growing by the day. One morning, news spread across the hills of Judah and Benjamin. The Philistines had gathered their armies at Soko, a region in Judah, and camped between Soko and Azekah in a place called Ephs-dammim. King Saul mustered the Israelite army and took position in the Valley of Elah, forming ranks against their enemy. The air was tense with fear and uncertainty. For 40 days, a terrifying figure would emerge from the Philistine camp. His name was Goliath, a champion from the city of Gath. He stood over 9 feet tall, clothed in armor that gleamed under the sun. Bronze helmet, bronze coat of mail weighing over 125 pounds, bronze greaves, and a massive javelin slung across his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's beam, and its iron tip weighed 15 pounds. A shield bearer walked ahead of him, making him look like an invincible war machine. Every morning and evening, Goliath would stride onto the battlefield and shout, "Why have you come to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servant of Saul? Choose one of your men, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." His voice echoed to the valley like thunder, and each time he spoke, fear seized the hearts of the Israelite soldiers. No one dared to face him. Even King Saul, a tall and valiant man himself, trembled at the sight of Goliath. Chapter 2, A Shepherd's Heart. Meanwhile, in the town of Bethlehem, a humble shepherd boy named David tended to his father's sheep. He was the youngest of 8 sons born to Jesse, a man of great faith. David was a gifted musician, a brave protector of his flock, and a man after God's own heart. David had previously served in King Saul's court as a harpist, and his music calmed the troubled king. However, during this time of war, he returned to care for his father's sheep. One day, Jesse called David and said, "Take this roasted grain and these loaves of bread for your brothers. Also take this cheese to the commander of their unit. Go quickly to the battle lines and see how your brothers are doing." David rose early the next morning, left his sheep with a keeper, and set out to the Israelite camp, carrying supplies and questions. As he arrived, the army was marching out to their battle positions, shouting their war cries. Excitement and fear mixed in the air. David ran to the front lines, found his 3 eldest brothers, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, and greeted them. But as they spoke, Goliath came out once again, taunting Israel and challenging a man to fight him. David watched in shock as the men of Israel cowered in fear and fled from Goliath. He asked the nearby soldiers, "What will be done for a man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" His words stirred those around him. But when his eldest brother Eliab heard David speaking, he became angry and rebuked him. "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and arrogance. You just came to watch the battle." David replied calmly, "What have I done now? Is there not a cause?" Chapter 3, Before the King. David's words reached the ears of King Saul, and he was summoned to the king's tent. Saul looked at the young man before him, ruddy, bright-eyed, and full of courage. David bowed and said, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul was astonished. "You are not able to go against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a youth, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David answered, "Your servant used to keep his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the lamb. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." King Saul, moved by the boy's faith, said, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Saul offered David his own armor, but David struggled to walk in it. "I cannot go in these," he said, "for I am not used to them." He took them off. Instead, David took his staff in hand, chose 5 smooth stones from a brook, placed them in his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in hand, approached the giant. Chapter 4, The Face-Off. The Philistine giant, Goliath, saw David approaching. He squinted, then laughed. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" he roared. "Come here, and I will give your flesh to the birds and the beasts." David did not flinch. His voice rang clear and bold. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. All the earth will know that there's a God in Israel." As Goliath moved forward to attack, David ran quickly toward the battle line. He reached into his bag, took out a stone, and slung it with all his might. The stone flew straight and true, guided by the hand of God. It struck Goliath on the forehead, and the giant stumbled, then collapsed face down on the ground. Silence fell. David ran forward, took Goliath's own sword, and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled in terror. The Israelite army surged forward with a shout, chasing the Philistines all the way to the gates of Ekron. The victory was complete. Chapter 5, A Nation Rejoices. David returned with Goliath's head, and Saul asked, "Whose son are you, young man?" David replied, "I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem." From that day on, David's name was spoken with awe across Israel. He became a symbol of faith, courage, and God's power to use the unlikely to do the impossible. Chapter 6, After the Victory. The valley was still trembling from the sound of war, but David's triumph had turned fear into joy. The once dreaded name of Goliath was now a memory, a monument to God's power, not the Philistines. As the dust settled, David stood, blood-stained and victorious, with the sword of Goliath in his hand and the severed head held high. The people of Israel erupted into cheers. Soldiers who had once cowered behind rocks now raised their voices in celebration. King Saul's eyes were fixed on David, filled with a mix of amazement and unease. He turned to his general Abner and asked, "Whose son is this youth?" Abner replied, "As surely as you live, O king, I do not know." Saul instructed him, "Find out whose son this young man is." When David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner brought him before Saul. David bowed respectfully, still holding Goliath's head. Saul asked, "Whose son are you, young man?" David replied, "I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem." Chapter 7, A Friend Like No Other. From that day on, David remained in the service of King Saul. He was no longer just a shepherd or a harpist. He was now a national hero. Yet, David did not let pride overtake him. He remained humble, obedient, and faithful to God and to the king. Among those who admired David most was Jonathan, Saul's son. Jonathan had also been a man of great courage and faith, and when he saw David's bravery, his soul was knit with David's. Jonathan and David formed a covenant of friendship. Jonathan gave David his robe, armor, sword, bow, and belt, a powerful gesture that symbolized not only friendship, but also recognition of David's anointing by God. This friendship would later become one of the most loyal and sacrificial bonds recorded in all of Scripture. Chapter 8, Rising Fame, Growing Jealousy. As David continued to serve Saul faithfully, he was sent out on missions of war, and the Lord gave him success in everything he did. The people of Israel began to sing his praises. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. These songs echoed through the streets and towns of Israel. But to Saul, they pierced like arrows. Instead of rejoicing in David's victories, Saul grew envious and suspicious. What more can he get but the kingdom? Saul thought. From that day forward, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. An evil spirit tormented the king, and on several occasions he tried to kill David, once even hurling a spear at him while he played the harp. But God protected David. David never retaliated. Even as Saul's jealousy grew, David's humility and faithfulness remained unchanged. He continued to trust God, who had once given him victory over the lion, the bear, and the giant. Chapter 9, The Spirit Behind the Sling. What made David so unique wasn't just his bravery. It was his unwavering faith in God. David's heart was different. Where others saw a giant too big to fight, David saw a man too big to miss. His confidence didn't come from skill or strength, but from intimacy with the Lord. His days as a shepherd had taught him that God was his refuge and deliverer. David wrote many psalms that reflected his deep trust in God. Perhaps one of them, written later in life, echoed his thoughts as he stood before Goliath. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. Psalm 20, verse 7. Goliath represented the world's confidence, armor, weapons, intimidation. David represented God's power through humility. Chapter 10 echoes through time. The story of David and Goliath is more than a historical event. It is a prophetic picture. David, a humble shepherd, represents Christ, the good shepherd. Goliath, the towering enemy, represents sin, death, and the enemy of our souls. Just as David stood between his people and their enemy, Jesus stood between humanity and sin. David's victory was not just for himself, it was for all Israel. In the same way, Jesus' victory over death is for all who believe. This story continues to echo in every generation. Wherever there are giants of fear, oppression, or sin, there's a promise that God will raise up someone with faith to bring deliverance. Chapter 11, Lessons for Today. The account of David and Goliath offers deep spiritual truths that still apply. 1. Your past battles prepare you for future victories. David didn't fight Goliath with nothing. He had years of fighting lions and bears. The secret battles you win in private prepare you for the public victories. 2. Don't let fear paralyze you. The entire army of Israel was frozen by fear, but one young man with courage shifted the destiny of a nation. 3. God uses the unlikely. David was the youngest son. He wasn't a warrior, but God doesn't look at appearances. He looks at the heart. 4. Don't wear someone else's armor. Saul tried to put his armor on David, but David succeeded because he walked in the tools God gave him, not what others thought he needed. 5. The battle belongs to the Lord. David's strength was not in stones or strategy. It was his belief that God fights for his people. Final reflection. Who is your Goliath? We all face giants: fear, addiction, doubt, sickness, financial struggles, spiritual battles. Like David, we can choose to focus not on the size of the enemy, but on the greatness of our God. The same God who empowered a shepherd boy to defeat a giant is still working today. If God is for us, who could be against us? Romans 8, verse 31. Let David's story inspire you to rise in faith. The battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. Themes and lessons from David and Goliath. Faith over fear. David's trust in God gave him the courage that no warrior possessed. God uses the humble. David was young, small, and inexperienced in war, yet God used him to bring a great victory. The battle belongs to the Lord. David knew the battle wasn't about strength or skill. It was about God's power. Preparation matters. Though David didn't use a sword, he was prepared. He knew how to use his sling from years of guarding sheep. God looks at the heart. Saul and others judged by outward appearance, but God saw David's heart.